and enforce a regime change. A regime change. You could see what happened in 2011, the wave of revolution that took place in what, in most especially in what, in North Africa, that affected what, a regime change in Libya, in Tunisia. Till today, there is still what, political instability in the Libya. So they force what we call a regime change. And when there is a regime change, they bring in what, those that will promote the interest of the international comprador or international bourgeoisie, so that what, the economic exploitation can have what, a continuation. Then another thing that McClelland also say is that one of the factors that is responsible for low need for achievement in developing countries is because they are not fortunate to have leaders that have high need for achievement. High need for achievement. The leaders that have been able to rule these developing countries from one point to another do not have a high need for achievement. That is what is postulating. But they fail to understand that in developing countries, we also have leaders that are what? That are agile, that are active, and they also have what? High level of what? Of need for achievement. Now, if you could remember, after the Second World War, a lot of African political elites were more enlightened, they were more educated because a lot of them were able to have access to Western education. And Western education actually served as a parameter that actually equipped them to be able to know that colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism is evil. And these leaders were actually active. And these leaders, when they came to Africa, some of them established what we call the National Congress of British West Africa, where you have Kesley Hayford, Chief Oluwa, and the rest of them that attended so many constitutional conferences in what? In Lagos, in Ibadan, and in London before most of these colonies became independent. So how can they assume that developing countries, why they are not developed, is because they have leaders that have low need for achievements. So we have political leaders that are very cohesive, that are very, very active, and they have what? High need for achievement. But that is not to say that African leaders are actually free. Because over the years, underdevelopment and traditional society or pre-industrialized societies has characterized these territories or states because why? Because of the high level of corruption, where state resources that are meant to be used for developmental processes to facilitate development in these areas, are actually what? Stolen, siphoned, embezzled, and taken away, and what? Stored in their own private pockets at the detriment of what? Of the country at large. And that is why there is no visible development in most of these societies. So we can say that McClelland is right on the one hand because most of these leaders have what? Low need for achievements. But we can also say that is also wrong on the other hand because we have leaders that have what? High level of need for achievement. So it's a vice versa thing. But if African leaders can be patriotic, can be zealous, can have the vision, can have what it takes to be a good leader, by channeling the resources, the raw materials, the capital, or the resources of the country into the right channel, you will discover that the so-called developing countries can actually what? Also become developed. So cohesive leadership, group leadership, accountable leadership, leaders with integrity, leaders that have the mindset of their people at heart, leaders that are ready to work and do the needful. They discovered that developing countries can also be developed. Now, apart from the era of the return of the political elites, history also tells us that right from time, the most developed societies at that time was actually found in Africa. At that time, even Europe was not even developed. During the Dark Age, during the Dark Age, Africa was the most developed societies. It took Europe about 250 years before they could catch up with them. 250 years before Europe could catch up with what? With Africa. Egypt is a very good example of what? Of an advanced society at that time. In fact, before operations started in Europe, they have been performing surgery in these societies even before they started performing surgeries in what? In developed countries. It started from what? From Africa. The first university was founded in Africa. Mali is a very good example also of these societies that were not primitive, that were not traditional. They were advanced countries. Then where did we get it wrong? That today, most of these societies are now backward. They are now traditional. But right from time, they were the most advanced societies at that time. But now they are now what? The developing countries. Characterized by why? Ethnic strife, by coup, by political instability, by religion, by terrorism, by banditry, by unemployment. And the so-called advanced country today are more developed. They are growing every time. They are more developed every time. They are more advanced every time. But the developing societies are nowhere to be found. So this is what McClelland, under the need for achievement, was trying to pass across to us in the area of what? Of modernization theory. So McClelland has stated so many things under his book titled The Achieving Society. He talked about need for achievement. He talked about low level of orientation. He talked about what? Lack of cohesive leadership in developing countries, and so many other things like that. So, in our next topic, we're going to look at Everett Egan under what we call status withdrawal. But what we have done today is what? Is McClelland the need for achievement. And he also talked about the issue of what? That in developing societies, parents played a major role in what? In determining what the need for achievement in children. But in developing societies, the reverse is the case because children are not given, they are not brought up to be independent in the early stage of what of their childhood. They are not given the privilege to explore. But in advanced countries, they are given the privilege to explore. On this note, we're going to round up on what we call McClelland need for achievement. And our next topic, we're going to go into what we call Everest Egan status withdrawal. So till we meet next time, I remain your humble servant, David Oni, and my Facebook page is David Oni Wiz. Till we meet next time, thank you to our viewers all over the world, from Nigeria, from Africa, Kenya, South Africa, you know, Namibia, and those from outside Africa. We say a very, very big thank you. So always come to this platform every week where I give a live stream lecture on government and politics. Till meet next time, stay safe.